The Vexarian Empire had ruled the outer spiral arms for 3 centuries. Their broadcasts reached every inhabited world, displaying their might, their conquests, and their absolute dominance over lesser species. They believed fear was the ultimate weapon. They were wrong. Jack Morrison sat in the cramped observation deck of the mining station orbiting Kepler 4 for 2b, his coffee growing cold in his hands. Melissa Chen stood beside him, her fingers frozen over her datapad. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Their eyes were locked on the holographic display floating before them, showing the Vexarian Empire's latest demonstration of power. The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old, a human child from the agricultural colony on Tau Ceti Prime. The Vexarians had captured her during a raid, and now, broadcast across every frequency in known space, they executed her, slowly, methodically, to prove that humanity meant nothing to them. The transmission ended with the Vexarian commander's voice, translated through universal protocols. This is the fate of all who resist the Empire. Your species is weak, insignificant. Accept your place, or share this child's destiny. For 5 full seconds, silence filled the observation deck. Then Melissa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. They just made a terrible mistake. Jack's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Pure, cold, calculating rage. He turned to look at Melissa and saw the same expression mirrored in her eyes. They had both served in the United Earth Defense Force before taking these mining jobs. They knew what humanity was capable of when pushed. Contact Earth, Jack said quietly. Tell them we're coming home. Within 6 hours, every human in the outer colonies was moving. Mining stations shut down. Trade ships changed course. Scientific expeditions abandoned their research. The Vexarians had broadcast their message to inspire fear. Instead, they had issued a declaration of war against the most vindictive species in the galaxy. Melissa and Jack arrived at Earth's orbital defense platform 3 days later. The planet below was transformed. Every shipyard worked at maximum capacity. Factories that had been idle for decades roared to life. The peacetime fleet was being retrofitted with weapon systems that had been theoretical until now. We've never mobilized like this, Melissa observed, watching troop transports launch in perfect formation, not even during the Centauri crisis. Admiral Rebecca Holt stood beside them on the command deck, her jaw set in grim determination. That's because we've never been given a reason. The Vexarians wanted to terrorize us into submission. They forgot to research who they were dealing with. What makes humans different? Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. Every other species in the galaxy fights for territory, resources, or survival, Admiral Holt replied. Humans, we fight for principle, for justice, for revenge. That child wasn't a military target. She wasn't a threat. She was innocent, and they killed her to make a point. Melissa nodded slowly. Now we'll make ours. The Vexarian Empire had faced rebellions before, species that fought back with guerrilla tactics, desperate last stands, or diplomatic maneuvering. They had crushed them all. But they had never faced humanity's version of war. Humans didn't fight fair. They didn't follow the conventional rules of engagement that governed galactic conflicts. When the Vexarian fleet expected frontal assaults, human ships appeared behind them, having traveled through uncharted wormholes that couldn't possibly be stable. When Vexarian commanders fortified their strongholds, human Spec Ops teams infiltrated through ventilation systems too small for any soldier to fit through. Jack and Melissa served aboard the UEDS Retribution, a destroyer that earned its name within the first week of combat. Their mission was simple: dismantle the Vexarian war machine, piece by piece, until nothing remained. Target acquired, Melissa reported from her tactical station. Vexarian Supply Depot, Sector 7, 3 capital ships in orbit. Jack studied the holographic display. Conventional assault would cost us 2 ships and 300 crew. Agreed, Melissa replied. So we won't do it conventionally. 30 minutes later, the Vexarian depot erupted in flames, not from missiles or plasma torpedoes, but from a chain reaction triggered by a single human infiltration team that had sabotaged the depot's fusion reactors from the inside. The 3 capital ships, caught in the explosion, were crippled before they could raise shields. That this became humanity's signature: unpredictable, relentless, utterly without mercy. 6 months into the war, the Vexarian High Command called for a ceasefire. They transmitted on all frequencies, requesting negotiation. Admiral Holt stood before the Council of United Earth, her expression carved from stone. They want to negotiate. What are our terms? The council leader asked. Unconditional surrender, Holt replied. Complete dismantling of their military. reparations to every species they've oppressed, and the commander who gave the order to kill that child, he stands trial under human law. They'll never accept those terms, someone protested. Melissa, attending as a decorated combat officer, spoke up. Then we continue. We've already liberated 47 colonies. We've destroyed 60% of their fleet. We can finish this. Jack nodded beside her. They wanted to teach us fear. We've taught them something better. We've taught them consequences. The Vexarian Empire did surrender, completely, unconditionally. Their commander stood trial on Earth, convicted of crimes against sentient beings, and sentenced to life imprisonment. The human judge's words echoed across the galaxy. You thought killing one child would break us. Instead, you've learned that humanity protects its own. And when you harm a human child, you don't just fight our military, you fight every single human who ever lived, whoever will live, and who will never forget. Years later, Melissa and Jack returned to that observation deck on the mining station, now restored and operational. They stood in silence, looking at the memorial hologram that floated where they had first seen that terrible broadcast. The little girl's image smiled eternally, surrounded by flowers left by visitors from across the galaxy. Do you think we went too far? Melissa asked quietly. Jack considered the question. We dismantled an empire that had committed atrocities for 3 centuries. We freed dozens of species. We established rules of war that protect civilians across known space. He paused. No, we went exactly far enough. Humanity took it personally, Melissa said. Damn right we did, Jack replied, and the galaxy is better for it. They stood together in the quiet observation deck, guardians of a memory and a promise, that humanity would always defend the innocent, always fight for justice, and would never, ever forget. The Vexarians had wanted to demonstrate their power. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous, human determination fueled by righteous anger, and the galaxy would never be the same.